The raven appeared on the courthouse steps at exactly 8:17 in the morning, carrying something silver in its beak. At first, no one paid attention. People were too busy rushing through the cold October drizzle, clutching folders under their coats, balancing paper coffee cups, whispering into phones, and climbing the wide stone stairs of the Mercer County Courthouse as if the building itself were waiting to swallow their secrets. Lawyers in dark suits hurried past nervous clients. Deputies held the doors open. Reporters gathered near the columns, checking their cameras and watching for familiar faces. It was supposed to be an ordinary hearing. At least that was what everyone thought. The case on the morning docket was small compared to the scandals and murder trials the courthouse had seen over the years. It was a dispute over an old Victorian house on Hawthorne Lane, a fading blue home with white trim, a wraparound porch, and a garden that had once been famous for roses. The house had belonged to a quiet woman named Evelyn Hart, who had died 6 months earlier at the age of 81. Her niece, Lydia Crane, claimed Evelyn had left the house to her. A young mechanic named Marcus Reed claimed the house had already been promised to him by a handwritten agreement. Most people thought Marcus had no chance. He was 28, black, soft-spoken, and clearly uncomfortable in a courthouse. He owned a small repair garage near the bus depot, wore the same clean but worn brown jacket every day, and had no powerful relatives in town. Lydia, on the other hand, came from one of Mercer's old families. She wore pearls, spoke with perfect calm, and had hired Victor Hale, a sharp attorney known for smiling while he destroyed people. The town had already decided what the story was. A lonely old woman had died. A poor young man had gotten too close. Now he wanted the house. Marcus stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps that morning, holding a cardboard box against his chest. Inside were oil-stained receipts, photos, and a folder of letters from Evelyn. None of it felt strong enough. Not against Lydia, not against Victor Hale, not against the way people looked at him like he had already done something shameful. His lawyer, Hannah Price, stood beside him, her red hair tucked under a gray wool coat, scanning notes with a worried expression. "Marcus," she said gently, "we need to be realistic. The judge may not accept the handwritten agreement without a witness. Evelyn's signature helps, but Lydia's side will argue undue influence." Marcus nodded. He had heard the phrase so many times it had started to sound like a curse. Undue influence, as if kindness were suspicious, as if showing up every winter to shovel Evelyn's walkway meant he had been planning to steal from her, as if repairing her furnace for free, bringing soup when she was sick, and sitting on her porch while she told stories about her late husband were all part of some scheme. "I didn't influence her," Marcus said quietly. "She asked me to promise." "I know," Hannah said, "but court is not about what we know. It's about what we can prove." Marcus looked up at the courthouse doors. Then he looked across the street toward the bare trees lining the square. A raven sat on the old iron lamppost. Marcus had seen it before. Several times, actually. It had appeared around Evelyn's house after her death, perched on the porch railing, hopping along the garden fence, tilting its glossy black head as if listening. Evelyn had fed birds every morning for as long as Marcus had known her, but this raven had been different, bold, watchful, almost familiar. Evelyn had called it Solomon. "Ravens remember faces," she once told Marcus, scattering seed along the porch rail. "And they remember kindness, too." Marcus had laughed. "You talk about him like he's family." Evelyn had smiled then, her thin hands trembling slightly around the bowl of seed. "Sometimes family comes with feathers. Sometimes blood family is the one you have to be careful of." Marcus had not understood what she meant. Not then. Now as the raven stared down at him from the lamppost, Marcus felt a strange ache in his chest. "Marcus?" Hannah asked. He blinked. "Sorry. Let's go." They started up the steps. That was when the raven flew. Its wings opened wide, black against the gray morning. People ducked instinctively as it swept low across the courthouse square, cutting through the drizzle with a flash of movement. Someone gasped. A reporter laughed nervously. The bird landed 3 steps above Marcus, claws clicking on wet stone. In its beak was a silver ring, not a shiny new ring, an old one. Small, tarnished, scratched by time. The raven dropped it. The ring bounced once on the courthouse step, rolled in a narrow circle, and stopped against Marcus's shoe. For a moment, nobody moved. Then a woman near the doors whispered, "What on earth?" Marcus stared down. The raven hopped closer, gave a harsh, echoing caw, and fixed one black eye on him. Hannah lowered her folder. "Marcus." He crouched slowly and picked up the ring. It was cold from the rain. A woman's ring, simple and delicate, with a thin band of silver and a small blue stone set in the center. The kind of ring someone might have worn every day for decades, not because it was expensive, but because it mattered. Marcus turned it in his fingers. Inside the band, something was engraved. The letters were tiny, worn, but still readable. To Clara, EMH. Marcus frowned. "Clara?" Hannah asked. "I don't know," he said. "Evelyn's initials were EMH. Evelyn May Hart." The raven cawed again. This time people truly began watching. A deputy stepped forward. "Sir, is that yours?" Before Marcus could answer, the courthouse doors opened, and Judge Samuel Whitaker stepped outside. He was not supposed to be there. Judges did not usually come out to the front steps before hearings. They entered from private hallways, passed through chambers, took the bench after everyone else had already stood. But Judge Whitaker had arrived early that morning, carrying his own briefcase, because his driver was sick and he disliked making a fuss over small inconveniences. At 72, Whitaker had served on the bench for nearly 30 years. He was tall, silver-haired, stern in public, and known for remembering details no one else noticed. Lawyers feared his silence more than another judge's shouting. He believed evidence mattered. He believed procedure mattered. He believed the law was not a stage for theatrics. So when he saw a crowd gathered around a raven on the courthouse steps, his expression hardened. "What is happening here?" he asked. The deputy turned. "Your Honor, a bird dropped something." A few people laughed uncertainly. Judge Whitaker did not. His eyes moved from the raven to Marcus, then to the ring in Marcus's hand. For one brief second, the judge's face changed. It was small, almost invisible. But Marcus saw it. Recognition. The judge stepped closer. "May I see that?" he asked. Marcus hesitated, then placed the ring carefully in the judge's palm. Judge Whitaker held it under the gray morning light. His thumb brushed the blue stone. Then he turned it and read the engraving inside. The color drained from his face. Hannah noticed first. "Your Honor?" Judge Whitaker did not answer immediately. He kept staring at the ring as if the courthouse steps had fallen away beneath him, and he was standing somewhere decades behind himself. Finally, he whispered, "Clara Hart." Marcus went still. "Hart?" Hannah repeated. The judge looked up sharply. "Where did you get this?" Marcus pointed at the raven. The raven ruffled its feathers and hopped up one step, entirely unconcerned with the law. Judge Whitaker looked at the bird, then back at the ring. "This hearing is delayed," he said. Victor Hale, who had just arrived with Lydia Crane under a large black umbrella, stepped forward immediately. "Your Honor, with respect," Judge Whitaker's voice cut through the rain. "Mr. Hale, I said delayed." Victor's smile stiffened. Lydia stood beside him, elegant and pale in a cream coat, her pearl earrings catching the weak morning light. But when her eyes landed on the ring in the judge's hand, something flickered across her face. Fear. Marcus saw that too. Judge Whitaker closed his fist around the ring. "Everyone inside," he said. "Now." 20 minutes later, courtroom 3 felt nothing like an ordinary property hearing. The room was packed. Word of the raven had traveled faster than rainwater down the courthouse steps. Reporters filled the back benches. Clerks whispered behind folders. Deputies stood near the doors. Lydia sat stiffly at the petitioner's table, hands folded so tightly her knuckles turned white. Victor Hale leaned toward her, murmuring something with a smile that looked more like a warning. Marcus sat beside Hannah, still damp from the rain, his cardboard box at his feet. And on the windowsill outside courtroom 3, separated from the room by old glass streaked with drizzle, the raven sat watching. No one had invited it. No one could make it leave. Judge Whitaker entered without his robe. That alone silenced the room. He sat at the bench slowly and placed the silver ring on a white sheet of paper in front of him. This court was scheduled to hear Crane versus Reed regarding ownership of the property at 112 Hawthorne Lane, he said. "Before we proceed, There is a matter that may affect the record. Victor rose. Your Honor, I must object to any delay based on an object allegedly dropped by a wild bird. You may object after I finish speaking, Judge Whitaker said. Victor sat. The judge looked at the ring. This ring bears the inscription, To Clara, E.M.H. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Judge Whitaker continued, his voice controlled but heavy. Clara Hart was Evelyn Hart's younger sister. She disappeared from Mercer County in 1974. The room changed. Marcus felt it like a shift in weather. Hannah leaned toward him. Did Evelyn ever mention a sister? Marcus shook his head. Never. Lydia's face remained still, but her eyes lowered. Judge Whitaker looked directly at her. Ms. Crane, you stated in your petition that Evelyn Hart had no surviving siblings and that you are her nearest living relative. Victor stood again. Your Honor, Ms. Crane's petition is based on available public records. I am aware of what the petition says, Mr. Hale. The judge opened a folder beside him. I knew Clara Hart, he said. This time the murmur became louder. Judge Whitaker lifted his eyes. Quiet. The courtroom obeyed. I was 20 years old when Clara disappeared. She was 19. Evelyn was 23. Their father owned the Hawthorne property then. Clara was engaged to a young man named Elias Monroe. Marcus looked at the ring. E.M.H. No, not Evelyn May Hart. Elias Monroe Hart? The judge seemed to read the confusion in the room. Elias was not born a Hart, he explained, but he was raised by his mother's family and sometimes used the name. He had this ring made for Clara before he left for military training. When he returned, Clara was gone. Lydia's attorney shifted. Your Honor, with respect, this is decades-old history and has no relevance to today's property dispute unless— It may have every relevance, Judge Whitaker said. Then he looked at Lydia. Because Clara Hart did not simply disappear. Lydia swallowed. The raven tapped its beak against the window. Once. Twice. The sound echoed in the silence like a knock. Judge Whitaker turned to the clerk. Call the case. We will proceed, but the scope is expanded. I want testimony under oath. Victor's face darkened. Your Honor, I must again object. Noted. The hearing began. Lydia testified first. She spoke beautifully, calmly, smoothly. She described Evelyn as a confused elderly woman, increasingly isolated, dependent on Marcus for transportation, repairs, groceries, and companionship. She said Marcus had inserted himself into Evelyn's life when she was vulnerable. She said the handwritten agreement leaving him the house was suspicious. She said Evelyn had always intended the property to remain with family. Family, Marcus thought bitterly. Lydia had visited Evelyn twice in the last 5 years, once to ask for antique furniture, once to ask Evelyn to sign paperwork. When Hannah cross-examined her, Lydia stayed composed. Did you call your aunt regularly? Hannah asked. As often as I could. Phone records show 3 calls in 6 months. Lydia's lips tightened. My aunt did not enjoy telephones. Did you help pay her medical bills? She was private about money. Did you know her roof leaked? I was not informed. Did you know Marcus Reed repaired it at no charge? I know he performed work at the property. Did you know Evelyn wrote him 17 thank you letters over 4 years? Lydia glanced at Marcus. My aunt wrote many letters. Hannah picked up one from the box. She wrote, Marcus, you have treated me more like family than anyone who bears my name. Do you dispute that this is Evelyn's handwriting? Victor stood. Objection. Overruled, Judge Whitaker said. Lydia stared at the letter. I am not a handwriting expert. Hannah nodded. No, but you are claiming to know what Evelyn wanted. The courtroom was silent. Then came Marcus. He hated being on the witness stand. He hated the way every eye followed him, measuring his jacket, his hands, his voice. He hated that Lydia would not look at him. He hated that Victor Hale smiled like Marcus was already caught in a lie. Hannah approached gently. How did you meet Evelyn Hart? Marcus took a breath. Her car broke down outside my garage. 4 years ago. She had an old blue Buick. The starter was bad. She didn't want a tow truck because she said she had dealt with enough men who charged her extra for not knowing engine parts. A few people smiled softly. So you repaired it? Yes. Did she pay you? She tried. I gave her a discount. She came back the next day with banana bread and exact change. Judge Whitaker's mouth twitched, almost a smile. And after that, she started coming by, sometimes for car things, sometimes just to talk. Then one winter I drove past her house and saw her porch steps had collapsed. I fixed them. Did she ask you to? No. Did she pay you? She made soup. A quiet laugh moved through the room. Marcus looked down at his hands. She was lonely, he said, but she wasn't weak. People keep saying that like she didn't know her own mind. Miss Evelyn knew exactly what she wanted. She just got tired of being ignored. Hannah let that sit for a moment. Tell the court about the agreement. Marcus swallowed. She gave it to me 3 months before she died. I told her I couldn't accept it. I told her Lydia was family. She said family is not a word people get to use only when something becomes valuable. Lydia's face flushed. Marcus continued. Miss Evelyn said the house had too much pain in it, but also too much love to be sold to strangers. She wanted it turned into something useful, a place for kids aging out of foster care to stay while they learn trades. She knew I taught apprentices at my garage. She said I'd know how to help people who were trying to stand on their own feet. Hannah's eyes softened. Did she want you to live there? She said I could have the apartment over the carriage house, but the main house was supposed to become the Heart House program. That's what she called it. Judge Whitaker leaned forward slightly. Do you have documentation of this program? He asked. Marcus reached into the box. Plans, notes, letters, a list of names of contractors who said they'd help. Hannah submitted the papers. Victor Hale rose for cross-examination. He buttoned his jacket slowly. Mr. Reed, he began, you expect this court to believe that an elderly woman gave you a valuable house because you repaired some stairs and listened to old stories? Marcus met his eyes. No, I expect the court to read what she wrote. Victor smiled. Convenient writings. Marcus said nothing. Were you aware that the Hawthorne property is worth nearly $700,000? Yes. And your garage is struggling financially, is it not? Marcus stiffened. Some months are hard. So when Miss Hart offered you this house, you had every reason to accept. I didn't accept it first, but eventually you did, because she asked me to honor what she wanted. Victor stepped closer. Or because you saw a chance. Hannah stood. Objection, argumentative. Sustained, Judge Whitaker said. Victor's smile remained. Mr. Reed, did Evelyn Hart ever tell you she had a sister named Clara? No. Did she ever tell you there was some hidden family secret involving a silver ring? No. Did you plant that ring on the courthouse steps today? The room erupted. Hannah snapped, Objection! Judge Whitaker's voice thundered. Mr. Hale! Victor lifted both hands. Withdrawn! But the damage hung in the air. Marcus felt his face grow hot. He looked toward the window. The raven stared back at him. Then it lifted its wings and vanished from the sill. The next witness was not supposed to exist. Her name was Nora Bell, and she was 92 years old. She arrived in a wheelchair pushed by her grandson, wearing a purple coat, white gloves, and an expression of deep irritation. I told that clerk I am not deaf, she announced before anyone asked her a question. Judge Whitaker looked almost startled. Mrs. Bell. Samuel, she said. The courtroom collectively held its breath. Judge Whitaker removed his glasses. It has been many years. It has. And I would have preferred to stay home with my tea, but then my grandson showed me that bird nonsense on the internet, and I saw the ring. Victor looked alarmed. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Nora Bell turned her head slowly. Young man, I have outlived 2 husbands, 1 tornado, 3 surgeries, and every fool who tried to interrupt me. Sit down. Someone in the back coughed to hide a laugh. Victor sat. Nora was sworn in. Hannah approached carefully. Mrs. Bell, did you know Evelyn Hart? Of course I did. Everyone knew Evelyn. Stubborn woman. Good heart. Terrible coffee. And Clara Hart? Nora's face changed. Yes, she said softly. I knew Clara. Judge Whitaker leaned back, silent. Nora folded her gloved hands. Clara did not run away like people said. She was sent away. A hush fell. By whom? Hannah asked. By her father, William Hart. Mean man. Proud man. He thought Clara had disgraced the family. How? Nora looked toward Judge Whitaker. She was pregnant. Lydia's head jerked up. Marcus stopped breathing for a second. Nora continued. Elias wanted to marry her. He gave her that ring before he left. But William would not allow it. Elias was poor. His mother cleaned houses. William said no daughter of his would marry beneath her. When Clara found out she was carrying Elias's child, William sent her to a home 2 counties away. Evelyn tried to stop him. Judge Whitaker's eyes lowered. Hannah spoke gently. What happened to Clara? She died giving birth, Nora said. That was what I heard. The baby survived. The courtroom seemed to shrink around those words. The baby, Hannah repeated. Nora nodded. A girl. William arranged for the child to be adopted quietly. Evelyn never forgave him. She searched for years. After William died, she searched harder. But records were sealed. Names changed. People lied. Judge Whitaker picked up the ring. How did you know the ring? Because Clara showed it to me the night before she was taken away. She was crying. Evelyn was with her. Evelyn said, if they take everything else, hide this. Clara said she would. Where was it hidden? Hannah asked. Nora looked toward Lydia. In the old chimney wall of the Hawthorne house. There was a loose brick in Clara's room. Every girl in the neighborhood knew about it. Lydia's face had gone gray. Hannah turned. Ms. Crane, did you recently remove anything from the Hawthorne house? Victor stood. Objection. My client is not on the stand. Judge Whitaker looked at Lydia. She can return to it. Lydia whispered something to Victor. He leaned closer, his expression tightening. The judge's voice became very calm. Ms. Crane, you are reminded you are under oath. Lydia stood slowly. She returned to the witness stand. Hannah asked again. Did you remove anything from the Hawthorne house after Evelyn's death? Lydia's voice was barely audible. Some items. What items? Family items. Did one of those items include a silver ring? Lydia closed her eyes. Victor said sharply, Lydia. She flinched. Then she opened her eyes. Yes. The courtroom exploded in whispers. Judge Whitaker struck the gavel once. Where did you find it? Hannah asked. In the wall, Lydia said. In an upstairs bedroom. There was a loose brick. Why did you not disclose it? Because I didn't know what it was. Nora Bell snorted. Liar! Judge Whitaker did not even correct her. Hannah stepped closer. Then how did it end up on the courthouse steps? Lydia's lips trembled. I threw it away. Marcus stared at her. You threw away a dead woman's ring? Hannah asked. I panicked, Lydia snapped, composure cracking at last. There were papers with it, old letters. I didn't understand at first. What papers? Lydia looked at Victor. Victor said nothing. What papers? Judge Whitaker asked. Lydia's voice broke. Letters from Clara, a birth certificate, adoption information. Evelyn had found copies. She knew. Marcus felt Hannah's hand grip the edge of the table. Knew what? Hannah asked. Lydia's face crumpled. That Marcus was Clara's grandson. The words struck the courtroom like lightning. Marcus did not move. For a moment he thought he had misheard. Then every sound became too clear. Rain tapping the windows. A reporter's pen dropping to the floor. Hannah whispering his name. Lydia breathing like she was drowning. Marcus stared at her. No, he said. Nora Bell watched him with sad eyes. Lydia wiped her face. Evelyn found out last year. She hired someone to trace Clara's child. The baby girl was adopted by a family named Reed. She grew up, had a son, and died when he was young. That son was you. Marcus's mouth went dry. His mother, Angela Reed, had died when he was 9. She had been gentle, tired, always working, always humming when she cooked. She had never known much about her birth family. She used to say some doors stay closed because the people behind them do not want to be found. Evelyn had known. All those porch conversations, all those long silences, all those times her eyes filled when Marcus mentioned his mother. She had known, or at least suspected. Why didn't she tell me? Marcus whispered. Nora Bell answered, not Lydia. Maybe she was afraid of hurting you. Maybe she wanted proof first. Evelyn carried guilt like other women carry purses. Always with her, always heavy. Judge Whitaker removed his glasses again. For the first time that morning, he looked old. I remember Clara, he said quietly. I remember how the town failed her. I remember how William Hart's money made everyone silent. He looked at Marcus. And I remember Evelyn standing on these very courthouse steps at 23 years old, begging someone to help her find her sister. No one spoke. Outside, wings beat against the rain. The raven returned to the windowsill. In its beak was a scrap of yellowed paper. A deputy opened the side window before anyone told him to. The raven hopped inside. A few people gasped and backed away, but the bird did not fly wildly around the courtroom. It landed on the rail near the witness stand, dropped the paper, and cawed once. Then it hopped to the edge of the judge's bench, as if it had done exactly what it came to do. The deputy picked up the paper carefully and handed it to the clerk, who handed it to Judge Whitaker. The judge unfolded it. His face tightened. "This appears to be a page from a letter," he said. He read silently first, then aloud. "Evelyn, if my baby lives, find her. Please, tell her I loved her before I knew her face. Tell her the ring was not the promise that mattered. Elias loved me, yes, but you loved me enough to fight father. If I do not come home, do not let them erase me. Clara." Nora Bell bowed her head. Marcus pressed both hands against his face. Hannah stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder. The courtroom was no longer just a courtroom. It had become a place where the past had finally forced its way through locked doors, hidden bricks, legal petitions, and family lies. Judge Whitaker ordered a recess, but no one moved at first. Lydia sat on the witness stand, crying quietly now. Not the polished crying of someone seeking sympathy. Real crying. Ugly, frightened, ashamed. Marcus stood slowly. Hannah tried to stop him, but he shook his head. He walked toward Lydia. Victor Hale rose halfway, then thought better of it. Marcus stopped a few feet from the witness stand. "Why?" he asked. Lydia looked at him through tears. For once, she had no perfect answer. "Because the house was supposed to be mine," she whispered. "Because my mother always said Evelyn was strange and selfish and owed us. Because when I found the letters, I realized you weren't some stranger. You had a stronger claim than I did." "I didn't even know," Marcus said. "I know. You could have told me. I know." His voice broke. "She was my family." Lydia covered her mouth. Marcus turned away before anger could become something he would regret. The hearing resumed 1 hour later. By then, the courthouse had changed around them. A records clerk had been sent to retrieve archived adoption filings. Judge Whitaker had contacted the county historical office. Hannah had submitted Evelyn's letters, plans for the Hart House program, and the handwritten agreement. Lydia's credibility was badly damaged. Victor Hale looked as if he wanted to disappear into his expensive suit. Judge Whitaker did not make a final ruling that day. The law required process. Evidence had to be authenticated. Records had to be reviewed. Claims had to be amended. But he did make one immediate order. Lydia Crane was barred from removing, selling, damaging, or entering the Hawthorne property without court supervision. The house would remain protected, and Marcus would be allowed to access Evelyn's study with his attorney and a court-appointed officer to search for further documents. When the gavel fell, Marcus felt no victory, only shock. He walked out of the courthouse into a world that looked exactly the same and completely different. The rain had stopped. The courthouse steps were wet and shining. Reporters shouted questions, but Hannah shielded him, and Marcus did not answer. He looked instead at the stone step where the raven had dropped the ring that morning. The bird stood there again, waiting. Marcus slowly approached. People fell silent behind him. The raven tilted its head. Marcus reached into his pocket and removed the silver ring. Judge Whitaker had allowed him to hold it temporarily after photographing it for the record. It rested in his palm, small and heavy, with a woman's lost life. "Solomon," Marcus whispered. The raven blinked. Marcus laughed once, broken and disbelieving. "Miss Evelyn really did train you to keep secrets, didn't she?" The raven hopped closer. Then with surprising gentleness, it tapped its beak once against the ring, not taking it, just touching it, as if confirming the delivery was complete. 2 days later, Marcus entered Evelyn's house under court supervision. He had not been inside since the funeral. The house smelled the same. Lavender soap, old books, dust, lemon polish. the faint, dry sweetness of roses pressed between pages. Sunlight moved through lace curtains and lay across the wooden floors in pale rectangles. In the front room, Evelyn's chair still faced the window where she used to watch birds gather on the porch rail. A bowl of seeds sat on the table beside it. Marcus stopped there for a long moment. Hannah waited quietly. The court officer, Mr. Bellamy, cleared his throat. "We should proceed to the study." Marcus nodded. Evelyn's study was at the back of the house. It had green walls, crowded shelves, and a desk covered in careful stacks of paper. Unlike the rest of the house, this room did not feel abandoned. It felt paused, as if Evelyn had stepped out and might return with tea. They searched for 3 hours. They found tax records, medical bills, handwritten notes, old photographs, and drafts of the Courthouse program. In the bottom drawer of the desk, Marcus found a folder labeled simply Clara. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were copies of birth records, letters from adoption agencies, handwritten timelines, and one photograph so faded it looked almost like a ghost. 2 young women stood in the garden. One was Evelyn, younger than Marcus had ever seen her, with dark hair down her back and a stubborn lift to her chin. Beside her stood Clara. She was laughing. Her hand rested on her stomach. Around her finger was the silver ring. Marcus sat down hard in Evelyn's chair. Hannah crouched beside him. "Take your time," she said. But there was no time large enough for what he felt. Grief for a woman he had known. Grief for a woman he had never known. Grief for his mother, who had lived her whole life not knowing she had been searched for. At the very back of the folder was a sealed envelope. Marcus Reed was written across it in Evelyn's thin handwriting. He opened it carefully. "My dear Marcus, if you are reading this, then either I found the courage too late or death found me first. I owe you a truth. When I first met you, I did not know who you were. You were kind to an old woman with a dead car, and that was all. But when you told me your mother's name, Angela Reed, something in me would not rest. I searched. I paid for records. I asked questions I had been afraid to ask for 50 years. Your mother was the daughter of my sister, Clara. That makes you Clara's grandson. It makes you my family. But I need you to know this. I did not leave you the house because of blood. I left it to you because you already understood what family should mean. You showed up. You listened. You fixed what was broken without first asking what you would gain. This house was built on silence. I want you to fill it with second chances. Forgive me for not telling you sooner. I kept thinking I would find the perfect moment, but perfect moments are cowards. They never arrive unless we drag them into the light. Solomon likes you. Feed him walnuts, not bread. He knows where Clara's ring is hidden. I pray you never need him to show you. With all the love I was too afraid to name Evelyn." Marcus folded over the letter and wept. Not quietly, not neatly. He wept like a child who had just found a door in the wall of his life and opened it to discover both a wound and a home. 3 months later, Judge Whitaker issued his ruling. By then, the facts were clear. Evelyn had discovered Marcus's connection to Clara. Lydia had found and concealed evidence proving that relationship. The handwritten agreement was authenticated. Evelyn's plans for the property were detailed and consistent. Lydia's petition was dismissed. The Hawthorne house would go to Marcus Reed under a trust arrangement requiring the property to be used for the Courthouse program. When the ruling was read, Marcus sat very still. Lydia did not appear in court. Her attorney accepted the decision with a tight jaw and no comment. Outside, reporters waited again. This time Marcus stopped on the steps. Hannah stood beside him. Judge Whitaker had already gone back inside. The raven perched on the courthouse roof, black against the winter sky. A reporter asked, "Mr. Reed, what will you do with the house now?" Marcus looked toward Hawthorne Lane, though the house could not be seen from there. "I'll do what Evelyn asked," he said, "and what Clara asked too." "What is that?" Marcus touched the silver ring hanging from a chain beneath his shirt. "I won't let them be erased." The first young person moved into Courthouse the following autumn. Her name was Tasha, 18 years old, recently aged out of foster care, stubborn, frightened, and determined not to show either feeling. She wanted to learn auto repair. Marcus gave her the carriage house apartment first, the one Evelyn had once told him he could use. Soon after came Daniel, who wanted to become an electrician. Then Luis, who cooked when nervous and filled the house with cinnamon and garlic. Then Amara, who barely spoke for 2 months before one day asking if she could plant roses. The house changed slowly. Rooms were painted. The porch was repaired. The garden came back in uneven patches of red, white, and yellow. The old dining room became a classroom. Evelyn's study became a small library. Clara's photograph was framed and placed near the front door beside Evelyn's. Under them, Marcus hung a small brass plaque. Clara Hart and Evelyn Hart. For every person who was sent away, silenced, forgotten, or told they did not belong. You belong here. On the day the plaque was hung, Solomon the raven landed on the porch railing with a walnut shell in his beak. Tasha screamed. Marcus laughed so hard he had to sit down. He does that, he said. The raven dropped the shell into an empty flower pot and looked deeply offended that no one understood its importance. Over time, Solomon became part of the house. He appeared on cold mornings, tapping the porch rail until someone brought walnuts. He stole shiny screws from Marcus's toolbox and once dropped a bottle cap directly into Daniel's coffee. He watched the young residents with suspicious intelligence and seemed especially fond of Amara, who spoke to him while tending the roses. Marcus never called him a pet. He was not. He was a witness with wings, a keeper of what people tried to bury. Years passed. The courthouse steps remained the place where people in Mercer County told the story. Children pointed at the stone and said, "That's where the raven dropped the ring." Tour guides mentioned it. Reporters revisited it every few years. Some people exaggerated, as people always do. They said the raven spoke. They said it attacked Lydia. They said the ring glowed in the rain. Marcus never corrected all of it. Stories needed mystery, but he made sure the truth stayed whole. A woman named Clara had been taken from her home. Her sister Evelyn had spent a lifetime trying to find what was stolen. A raven had carried a ring out of hiding. A judge had remembered a name. And because of that, a house built on silence became a refuge. One winter evening, long after Hart House had become known across the state, Marcus stood on the porch at sunset, watching snow settle over the garden. He was older now, silver beginning to show at his temples, his hands rougher from years of work. Inside, young voices argued over dinner. Someone was laughing. Someone was playing music too loud. Someone was burning toast. The house was alive. Solomon landed on the porch rail beside him, older too, though still glossy and proud. In his beak was something shiny. Marcus narrowed his eyes. "What did you steal now?" The raven dropped it into Marcus's palm, a small silver washer from the garage. Marcus shook his head. "You're a criminal." Solomon cawed. Marcus smiled, then reached beneath his shirt and touched Clara's ring. It had become smooth from years of wearing it close to his heart, not as a claim, as a promise. Behind him, Amara opened the front door. She was 23 now, studying landscape design, and had turned Clara's old garden into something people drove from other towns to see. "Marcus," she said, "Tasha says if you don't come eat now, she's giving your plate to the bird." Solomon perked up. Marcus pointed at him. "Don't get ideas." The raven blinked innocently. Marcus turned back once more to the snowy yard, the porch rail, the courthouse far beyond the square, hidden by distance but not memory. He thought of Evelyn. He thought of Clara. He thought of his mother, Angela, who had never known where she came from, but had somehow passed down enough tenderness for him to recognize home when he found it. Then he stepped inside. The door closed against the cold. Warm light filled the windows. And on the porch rail, the raven stood guard over the house that silence had lost and truth had finally reclaimed.